Alright, what's going on, everybody? So today was the season premiere for The Promised Neverland, and today I'm going to be giving you guys my thoughts on the first episode of the season. So first off, I want to say if you haven't seen this week's episode, go ahead and watch it first, and then go ahead and watch this review afterwards, because I'm going to get into spoilers. I'm not gonna go beat by beat, but I am gonna get into spoilers. I'm not gonna try to be vague here. So if you haven't seen this week's episode, go ahead and watch that first. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and get into this review. So, I like that this. So, first off, I like that it opens up with a conflict. Like they're in the middle of a conflict. That conflict being Emma and the group running away from this six-legged monster. And in that opening scene, we get Emma's dots. We get a line from Emma that she's thinking, and that line from Emma that she's thinking is "Freedom is beautiful yet so cruel," and I feel like that line is basically gonna encapsulate this entire season. Essentially, they are free from the orphanage, they're free from the farm, but now they got to survive. I think this whole season is going to be about their survival, and something that I like, something also that I like that as far as like the way that the season opens up, and as far as like where we as far as where we're at in this season, when it first opens, is like I like the fact that they didn't go with a time skip, because they could have easily gone with a time skip, and then they could have made Emma and the group older and more accustomed to surviving on their own. I like that it opens. It seems to open immediately after they leave the orphanage. They leave that farm. So I like that they do that, and then also just to kind of quickly touch on the opening. As far as like the opening sequence goes, there's a lot of great visuals in the opening, and I didn't really catch a lot in the ending sequence, but there are a lot of great visuals in the opening. There is that one part where like you see the kids on the dinner plates, which I thought was pretty cool. But with the way that it opens, I thought that it opens pretty well, and I thought that the episode overall, that it was paced pretty well. Something that I did notice, something that I noticed that I kind of appreciated throughout the episode, um, besides the animation, which I thought was pretty good, and I should say that that six-legged monster, the six-legged monster that ends up chasing them, because what ends up happening with this episode, as far as the way it's structured, we get that first scene where they're running away from that monster, and then it cuts. We get the opening, and then it cuts back to, after the opening, uh, we're just we're basically where they're just like walking around. They're moving ahead, trying to find water and food, essentially, at the first part of the episode. And the thing with this episode, that as far as something that I noticed, was that Emma's a good leader. That's one of the things I wanted to make sure that I pointed out, is that Emma's a good leader. And so here's a few things that I kind of noticed that kind of led me to that conclusion. Um, so at a certain point in the beginning of the episode, Ray pulls out this pen from William Minerva that Norman left behind, right? They pull out this pen. They end up deciphering this code. Uh, so they open the pen, and when they open the pen, there's like this holographic interface, and they end up using one of the books that they took with them to decipher this code. And essentially, after that whole sequence is over or whatever, the younger kids start to miss Norman, because they mention Norman and how Norman left the pen and the book and everything, and so the kids get all sad and stuff. And we see in that scene, Emma essentially raised everybody's spirits. She raised their morale. That's something that a good leader would need to do, especially in this sort of situation. And then also when they're being chased by the big six-legged creature, she smiles and says, basically to think about it, to think about it like a game of tag. And essentially, what she's doing there is essentially trying to ease their nerves, even though everybody is frightened out of their freaking mind. Everybody's afraid. They don't want to get eaten by this strange six-legged big creature, but she's still trying to ease their mind. And something else I also wanted to point out with the episode, we get Ray essentially apologizing for abandoning them, and because we've seen up to this point, we've seen Ray grow, like Ray has grown as a character, but then also another thing that kind of ties into the fact that Emma's a good leader. Emma can't do it on her own, obviously, and Ray I feel like Ray and when Norman was still around, and then even with Gilda and Dawn, like she needs that good support, the good support group or whatever. Like she needs good support. And I thought that Ray is a good supporting character for her, or a good ally, because he even notices her weakness, her faults. Like even in this episode, even in this episode, Ray is essentially like you're pushing yourself. Essentially, she's pushing herself too hard, and we see that throughout the episode. Since she cut her ear in the last season, like we see throughout this episode how she's pushing herself too hard, and how she ends up in the episode getting a fever, and he points out how eager she is. Like we see the faults of the character, but then we also see the scrimpts of Emma in this episode also. So that's just something that I liked and that I wanted to go ahead and point out. And then also, just in general, I want to also point out that the animation looked pretty good. Even with the monster in the beginning, and then later in the episode when the actual sequence happens in the middle of the episode, that six-legged creature is a CGI. It's done with 3D. And I've said in a lot of anime reviews that CG and 3D kind of mixed with 2D. It doesn't. Sometimes it can kind of look off, and sometimes it can look bad. But I think it benefits in this scenario. I feel like it benefits because of the fact that in the scene where the six-legged creature ends up chasing them, it's at night, so it doesn't look as bad as a lot of CG might look. It actually doesn't look bad at all, and I think it's simply because it takes place at night, so it doesn't look too out of place. That, and another thing that I also noticed, I noticed as they're walking throughout the forest and everything, we see these creatures, and they even point out that book that William Minerva left behind. That book is essentially supposed to have been a guide for them. So I like how these elements are kind of coming together now. But we see these different creatures, and they even, at a certain point, they find a plant, because at first they're looking for water and food, right? So we see these different little bugs and different creatures and stuff going around, and in general, I would say that I really like the whole as far as like the creature designs and everything. We see the demons that are going to be hunting them throughout the season in this episode. That the creature designs for both the demons, the bugs, that six-legged creature that ends up following them, the whatever you want to call it, that little monster, and then of course the demons and everything. I thought that the creature designs and everything like that looked pretty good. Another thing, to kind of get back to that point of Emma being a good leader, and even Ray, right? And his contribution, I like the fact that they seem to have a plan. Like they do a lot of smart stuff in here. They're not just aimlessly wandering around. Like they seem to have a good plan. Like even at first they're just like, okay, first things first, we need to get water and food, and we need to head this direction based off of what we saw in that pen. When they used that holographic interface. Like I like the fact that they're actually they actually seem to have a plan, right? And another thing I need to point out, because this is my first episode watching in Japanese. I watched season 1 in English, and originally I was going to actually wait until this, I was actually going to wait until the season got dubbed and then start watching it, but I said, you know what, let me go ahead and try to check this out first, because I don't want to get spoiled or anything. So I gotta say, watching it in Japanese, it's not the same. I prefer, just in general with the anime, I prefer watching it in English. And with The Promised Neverland, it's one of those rare shows, or it's one of the very few shows where like they really, really nail the younger kids when it comes to the voice acting. And so that was also just one reason as to why I wanted to watch it dubbed. But with the Japanese, I thought that the voice acting was pretty good. It's nothing phenomenal in my opinion, but the voice acting was pretty good. Especially the voice acting for the demons and stuff. Um, let's see here, and I'm just looking at my notes just to make sure I'm not missing anything before I end up closing out. So I think the only other thing I need to talk about is their encounter with the demons, because it turns out in this episode, they are saved by these demons by the end of the episode. After they're being chased, of course they're being chased by these other demons, and then they were being chased by that monster that I mentioned. But they end up being saved by these demons, and one of the only things I can say that Emma and Ray kind of did stupid. Well, it's really Emma, because I believe Emma is the one that says it. She asked the demon, after she wakes up and after they're safe, they wake up after being saved by the demons. And we do learn the name of one of the demons. I think it was Shoji or Shoujo, something like that. It started with an S. But they're saved by the demons, and Emma basically mentions she mentions William Minerva's name. I'm not sure if that was a smart move to actually mention his name. Maybe that's just me kind of thinking too much about it. But I don't know if that was a smart move for her to mention that person's name, because we don't really know what their motive is, and that was the whole point of Ray asking that question at the end. And I thought that the episode ended pretty good, on a pretty good ending, on a pretty good cliffhanger, on a very suspenseful moment. When the episode ended, I'm just like, oh my god, don't end here, and unfortunately it ended there. So we gotta wait till next week to try to figure out, to try to get a little bit more information as to why these demons are helping the kids out. But yeah, like, we don't know why they're helping these kids out. Maybe perhaps they're good demons. Maybe not all the demons, because if I'm remembering correctly, and y'all can correct me in the comment section, because I haven't seen The Promised Neverland season 1 in a minute. But if I remember correctly, the humans are like delicacies, right? So maybe not all the demons, because let's assume that the demons don't necessarily need to eat humans, and that the humans are delicacies. And then, like I said, I can't remember if that was the case. But let's say that they are delicacies, and that these demons, these two demons that save the kids, they aren't like the other demons. They're against eating the humans and stuff. Maybe they are allies, but like I said, at this point in the episode, at this point where they are at the start of the season, we don't know what their motive is. So maybe mentioning William Minerva wasn't exactly the best thing that they could have done. I don't know. Like I said, I could be thinking too much about it. I could be thinking too hard on it. But yeah, that was just something I wanted to go ahead and kind of mention there. So I think I talked about everything I wanted to talk about in this, as far as this episode goes. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Oh yeah, there's another thing I wanted to mention. It's just the pacing. I just want to kind of give credit that the pacing was pretty good. I thought it was paced pretty well. And yeah, that's pretty much all I gotta say about this week's episode. I thought it was pretty good. It was a pretty good way to open up the season. This season, like I said, that whole quote, "Freedom is beautiful yet so cruel." Yeah, this whole season is definitely probably going to be about their survival, and I'm definitely curious to see as to like what the demons are after. Why are they doing what they're doing, and we'll get to see more of that later for the next week's episode. So hope you guys enjoyed listening to my review. Let me know what you guys thought about this week's episode of The Promised Neverland, and thank you guys for watching. I'm out of here. Peace.